Hi, I'm Steve Marcos, the founder of National Park Planner, the largest national park review website ever created by a private citizen. If I'm talking about it, then I did it. All my reviews are based on my own personal experience in the national parks. Furthermore, National Park Planner is not associated with the National Park Service or the federal government, so these agencies have no influence on my opinions. I currently have 186 detailed park reviews on my website, which includes nearly 5,000 articles and over 21,000 photographs. And today I'm going to talk to you about all there is to see and do at the Belmont-Paul Women's Equality National Monument in Washington, D.C. Now, the park was authorized by Barack Obama in 2016 per the Antiquities Act. This means he didn't need any congressional approval to create the park. Now, the park is located just east of the Capitol building in the Sewell Belmont House, which is only a 10-minute walk away. So it can easily fit into your itinerary if you're visiting the Capitol, the National Mall, the White House, etc. on foot. And when visiting any destinations in Washington, or any major city for that matter, don't make the mistake of driving downtown. Take the metro. Now, there's two stations within a 10-minute walk of the Belmont-Paul Women's Equality National Monument. Union Station, which is accessed via the Red Line and Amtrak, it's only 0.4 miles away. And the Capitol South Station, which is accessed via the Blue, Orange, and Silver lines, is 0.6 miles away. Now, while located in the Sewell Belmont House, be aware that the Belmont-Paul Women's Equality National Monument is not a house museum that is lavishly decorated with period furniture like you'd see on an antebellum plantation tour. It's a museum dedicated to the women's suffrage movement that led to the passage of the 19th Amendment in 1920, and that outlawed discrimination based on sex in regards to voting. It effectively gave women the right to vote. Now, the park is typically only open on Fridays through Sundays from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And during Women's History Month in March, it's also open on Wednesdays and Thursdays. But keep in mind that these times, they can always change. So before planning a trip to the park, be sure to check the National Park Service's official operating hours and seasons webpage. Now, this museum could have been set up in any building that the National Park Service owns. The reason it's in the Sewell Belmont House is because the house was the headquarters for the National Women's Party from 1929 all the way up to 2016. Now, the National Women's Party was one of the major organizations that was fighting for women's suffrage and the ratification of the 19th Amendment. The National Women's Party actually operated a women's suffrage museum in the house under the name Sewell Belmont House Museum and Library from the 1970s up until the National Park Service took over in 2016. And during this time, it was a partner with the National Park Service. So exhibits in the museum today, they're pretty much the same as when the National Women's Party ran it. So the telling of the history of the suffrage movement leans slightly towards its point of view. There were other suffrage organizations that played a major role in getting the 19th Amendment passed. These organizations are mentioned, just not as often as the Women's Party. So who are Belmont and Paul, the two names on the park's marquee? Well, one of them is Alice Paul, and she's the lady who founded the National Women's Party in 1917, a few years after she left the National American Women's Suffrage Association, which was the largest women's suffrage organization at the time. The other is Alva Belmont, who is a rich socialite, and she was active in a lot of women's causes, including the suffrage movement. Her first husband, whom she divorced because he was cheating on her, was William Vanderbilt, and he was the grandson of Cornelius Vanderbilt. And she got $10 million out of that divorce, so she had a lot of money of her own. Her second husband was Oliver Belmont, and his father was August Belmont, and that's the guy who founded the Belmont Stakes horse race. Now, Alva Belmont was also involved with the National American Women's Suffrage Association. But when Alice Paul left, she went with her. And in 1929, she purchased what was then known as the Sewell House, which was named after the original owner, Robert Sewell. She purchased it specifically for use as the headquarters of the National Women's Party. So while the park itself is named Belmont-Paul, the house is still the Sewell Belmont House. For Alice Paul was never an owner, and these houses tend to be named after the owners of significance. Now, Belmont-Paul Women's Equality National Monument is one of the least involving parks in the national park system. The house sits on the corner of Constitution Avenue and 2nd Street Northeast. There's a modern building to the left and behind it, so there's no trails, there's no gardens, there's no other grounds to walk around. All there is the museum. Now, you can go through the museum on your own, or you can join a guide who will present a lecture on the suffrage movement while pointing out items of importance in the various exhibit rooms of the museum. So this tour/lecture is currently held at 10 a.m. and at 2 p.m. And if you want to learn something without having to read a whole bunch, I highly recommend attending. Now, depending on who gives the tour, plan to spend up to an hour. If you walk through the museum on your own and you read everything, you can do so in about 30 to 45 minutes. Now, I arrived outside these tour times, and a staff member still gave me a tour. A few other people had arrived as well, so there did end up being a small group. Now, there's no guarantee of getting on a tour after these set times because it has to be at least 2 staff members. It has to be one person at the front desk and a second person to give the tour. But it doesn't hurt to ask. Truth be told, I got on the tour because nobody was there at the 10 a.m. tour, and the guy was just standing around doing nothing. So it's not like this is a very popular park. I was there for like 2 hours, and maybe 10 other people came in. Also, keep in mind that if only one person shows up for work on the day you visit, there's not going to be any tours at all. So if getting on a tour is important to you, be sure to call just before heading out to the museum. The number is 202-441-7572. Now, when you first walk into the Sewell Belmont House, you'll be in the entrance hallway. And this now serves as a welcome center, and there's an information desk and a book and souvenir store. The museum itself consists of exhibits in what is referred to as the Hall of Portraits, which you can see behind me, and 4 rooms that branch off the hallway. Now, all the rooms are on the main floor, but there are 4 steps from the entrance hall up to the Hall of Portraits. Those in wheelchairs, there is a wheelchair lift. Now, visitors to the house begin their tour of the museum in the Hall of Portraits. On display are busts and paintings of prominent women involved in the suffrage and women's rights movements, including Alice Paul, Alva Belmont, Susan B. Anthony, who you probably heard of, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Lucy Burns, and many, many others. Now, of the 4 exhibit rooms, one houses a collection of furniture acquired over the years by the National Women's Party, and that includes a desk that once belonged to Susan B. Anthony. The National Women's Party members often featured this desk prominently in group photos and other propaganda. There's also a chair that belonged to Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who was considered the mother of the women's rights movement, and there's a desk that belonged to Alva Belmont. Now, of the other 3 rooms, 2 of them are dedicated to the fight to get the 19th Amendment passed, and the third covers what the National Women's Party did after the passage of the amendment. The group went on to propose over 600 laws. About half of those were passed. Getting an Equal Rights Amendment added to the Constitution was another of the group's major causes. Now, such an amendment was actually presented to Congress way back in 1878, but nothing came of it. A new version was drafted by Alice Paul and Crystal Eastman in 1923. It was introduced to Congress as well. Again, nothing came of it. In fact, it was introduced every year afterwards with no results. That is up until 1972, when Congress finally voted for the amendment. It now had to be ratified by 38 of the 50 states within 7 years. And in 1979, when that deadline came, they extended it for another 3 more years. Fortunately, the amendment never did get enough votes by the 1982 deadline. So it's a dead issue now, so to speak. Now, there's also information about Mary Church Terrell and Ida B. Wells, 2 notable black women who were actively involved in the suffrage movement. Now, in general, black women were discouraged from participating in protests, and those who did usually brought up the rear of any march. Now, the reason for this is not blatant racial discrimination by the white female suffragists, who were usually upper class or upper middle class. This was more of a strategic decision. The leaders, again, who were all white, believed they had enough people against them already, and if they added black women into the mix, even more people would be against them, particularly those in the southern states. Now, as it turned out, the only southern states that voted for the 19th Amendment, at least at that time, were Tennessee and Kentucky. So I guess it wouldn't have mattered if they pissed them all off anyway, because the amendment got passed. So Now, there is a fifth room in the Belmont-Paul Women's Equality National Monument that is open to the public. It is the Florence Bayard Hills Feminist Library. Now, the library first opened in 1943 in a carriage house on the property. Florence was a founding member of the National Women's Party, and she was put in charge of it. Today, the library is located inside the house, and I don't think you can check out the books, but you are welcome to sit and read them during regular business hours. So that's the essentials of the Belmont-Paul Women's Equality National Monument. I spent 2 hours there, but I read everything and I take a lot of photos from my National Park Planner website. I don't see the typical tourist spending much more than an hour there unless women's suffrage is a very important topic for you. Now, if you'd like more information about planning your trip to Belmont-Paul Women's Equality National Monument, or detailed information to help you plan your trip to 185 other properties in the National Park System, be sure to visit the National Park Planner website at npplan.com. I'll put a direct link to the Belmont-Paul Park and the National Park Planner website in the description below. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave them in the comment section and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. And if you would like to be notified whenever I post a new National Park review video, be sure to subscribe to the channel. I hope this review was helpful. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.